Okay, so Michael,
Shahar.
so you don't know what we're going to talk about today.
I don't, but I'm very excited to
Okay.
find out.
Now don't worry, you'll be very comfortable with this one because this is truly like your bread and butter. But today I wanted us to talk about something that came up to me throughout this week. And it's specifically the role of masculinity in the world of spirituality.
Hmm.
Because it's something I've noticed a lot this last week. Is a lot of people, especially men, find it very difficult to kind of navigate the spiritual world a little bit. And for many different reasons, I think also part of our culture is kind of there's some challenges regarding the masculine energy. So I wanted to talk about it from the perspective of being a man and also from the perspective of being a woman, like talking about the energy itself,
Hmm.
as well as, like guys, males, men, everybody in that category that experiences spirituality. And I feel there's a lot of difficulties around that. Well, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And you're right, I am very comfortable with this topic. I specialize in seeing men with trying to create the mindful male, as I like to call it. Again, not pigeonholed into that. I see a wide array of people, but that's definitely one of my strengths or specializations is men's mental health. But I think you're right. I think that in the spiritual world, we talk about that delicate dance between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And I think that when, again, like with the martial arts teaching us how to transition seamlessly, right? I think it's very hard sometimes, especially in the male experience, to understand that not everything has to be kinetic, right? There can definitely be times for passivity, tapping into the receptivity that the divine female, represents as well, right? It's all that balance, it's all that harmony. But because of some of the ancient programming a lot of males have had through their early childhood experiences and life experiences in general, right? There isn't too much, sometimes honoring that divine feminine piece can almost be seen as weakness, if you will. So, I welcome this topic. I think it's fantastic.
All right, so yeah, so let's start from the first part. All right, so here's my first question I want us to kind of tackle.
Hmm.
First, let's define what do we mean by masculine energy?
Hmm.
And what do we mean by life experience as a man in a spiritual sense and the modern culture way? Like what exactly are we talking about? Let's kind of define our terms. So
Sure.
first of all, let's tackle masculine energy. What do you think that is?
Well, masculine energy, I find, is a very, I pair it a lot with that young energy, right? That very active energy, that moving forward, that goal, that motivation, the drive, the kinetic energy, if you will, right? I think that a lot of males grow up with the expectation of being the provider and falling into these different roles where they put emotions aside for the benefit of whatever they consider close to them, be it family, friends, etc. Right? So I think that as we're talking about that masculine energy, I think it is that very forward, very active style of energy. I'm open to your thoughts as well.
Well, yeah, we're about the same on that one, especially since, like we come from the same lineage.
Mhm.
So first of all, yes, absolutely. I think masculinity or masculine energy is definitely the concept of an active energy. It's something that you do. It comes from the desire. It comes from the energy to want to achieve, to reach, to active. I like to say in my yoga classes, when you hold a yoga posture, there's two forces working on you. I talked about it that last class in Qigong too. The force that's bringing you down is gravity, and what's keeping you up is will, right? The reason I'm not constantly on the ground, and that's something that we see associated with a lot of depression, of sadness, the lack of motivation is you're literally getting closer and closer to the ground, laying on the ground, sitting on the ground. You get closer and closer to the ground because you lack will. It's ambition, inspiration, these things that lift us up.
Hmm.
And that's its own force. So I think of that as the force of yang. That's the force of masculinity. And I like what you said because in our culture, and I'm assuming different cultures have different roles, right? and they address masculinity in different ways, which makes sense because if you think of masculinity as raw energy,
Hmm.
then different cultures, based on their own translation, trauma, you can call it, because every culture, like every human being, goes through a trauma and experiences and beliefs, but it's collectively. Then they take this energy and translate this, and this is what masculinity would look like and behave like that. So, so let me bring it back to you, Michael. What do you think? Because you see this a lot, and I see that, I as a martial artist, as a soldier, but I feel like you really dive deep into this one.
Hmm.
How do you think the role of masculinity has been developed in our modern life? And we're talking about the United States, the Western world, specifically the United States, because this is where we are.
Hmm.
What do you feel is the masculine role here
I think the
that's been developed?
masculine, yeah, I think that, well, I think that could be very subjective, right? I think everybody defines their own terms as to what their roles specifically are. But I think on the grander societal scale, the masculine role has been depicted as somebody who's very forward motion, someone's that again puts their own emotions to the side, doesn't want to be a burden to anybody else, nose to the grindstone, rub some dirt on it, and just keep going. Provide, 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 right? Achieve,
That's
achieve,
exactly
achieve.
what I was about to say. Provider.
Yep,
Provider
provider.
shows up a lot. A
Oh
lot.
yeah, definitely.
And
But the thing is, there's no like when you operate off of just that provider mentality, there's no balance, right?
right.
Going back to a lot of the things that we talk about, crazy to think, a lot of things we talk about interconnect with one another, but it's almost like operating off of too much of that fire energy, right? Without checking in with your aspect of balance. Provide, provide, provide while ignoring how you are internally and not discussing those things, not bringing them to the forefront, not being okay with, checking in with yourself along the way can be very detrimental, right? And I think that, maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself when I'm talking about, kind of the roles or the experiences that I've seen in my practice with working with males. The very common denominator is a lack of empathy, if you will, right? Or a lack of understanding of what empathy is. I won't say lack of empathy because I think, I've run into obviously a lot of males that have empathy, right? But their understanding of what empathy is. What do I mean by that? I mean that understanding of emotion, right? I find when I work with couples, something very common that comes up is that differentiation between analytics and logic versus emotional intelligence, right? Just tell me what the problem is and I'll fix it versus, yes, but I want you
Right.
to understand why I feel this way, right? And there's such a big gap when it comes to those different things. And a lot of that is indicative of a lack of emotional training, a lack of emotional development, understanding what emotions are, what they feel like, my own experience. I'm sure you can relate to this as well. How many times have you, has maybe Kayla come up to you and been like, hey, you seem off, right? And it's hard to really put your finger on what exactly it is, right? You just kind of feel off. But if I ask Sophia, she'd be able to tell me right off the bat, right? Like, oh, I'm feeling this, whatever, whatever, whatever. And I think there's just that, it's just a symptom of not having that sort of awareness, that full body awareness to understand what is the energy that you're feeling, what is the emotion that you're feeling. Very hard to kind of pinpoint it.
Right. So that's kind of what you're referring to. This is the masculine energy in imbalance. And
Hmm.
I want to kind of focus more on the masculine role. So you mentioned that. Okay, so provider,
Provider. Hmm.
that's the word that shows up a lot,
Yep.
is achiever. Um, because that's something that I feel this is where the water becomes really murky, especially here in the West. That's kind of where it shows up to me a lot this last week, noticing it in different people. Because if you're living online,
Hmm.
you have the worst role models for masculinity. You have the worst, except us. Yeah.
Naturally.
That's what we're
Naturally.
saying.
Yeah.
Everything online is terrible, except
Except us.
yes. But so yeah, but it's really terrible out there because it's a lot of persona, it's a
Hmm.
lot of masks out
Hmm.
there. So if you're looking for inspiration of achieving, you get a lot of fake achievements. It's a lot of glamour. It's a lot of fake cars, a lot of women, and most of the time, if not all the time, honestly, I'm pretty sure it's like 99% of the time, it's women are just hired. It's
Hmm.
like people who just want to have the clicks, so they pay those ladies to kind of dance around and blah blah blah. But it creates a persona
Hmm.
of achievement, like, oh,
Hmm.
this guy is so young, he achieved so much, and it sucks you in.
Yep.
Even though cognitively you're like, this gotta be nonsense. This feels like
Right.
nonsense. But your amygdala rated that fear of losing out,
Hmm.
of like someone getting ahead of you,
Right.
kind of
Hmm.
picks up really fast, and then your survival mind kicks in,
Hmm.
especially since the internet is all amygdala.
Hmm.
You notice all of it is amygdala. It's all about if it's commercials to make you feel like you don't have enough. It's to make you sure this is a better way. This like always, it's all right here. It's
Oh yeah.
fear of, like I said. So there's a lot of bad representation, in my opinion, of what a male role model should look. So
Hmm.
how do you diagnose this? Like, what is this? What is our problem, really? Like, what are we missing? Are they the right role models? Are they the wrong role models? What is a male role model in a spiritual sense? Like, what is our spiritual role models? What is our goal? What are we achieving? Because it's if we have heavy, young, achieving energy,
Hmm.
how do we channel it? Where do we
Hmm.
channel? What are we needing to achieve?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question, but I think it just comes back to that aspect of clarity, right? Because if you're looking externally to understand kind of what your drives are, what your motivators are, and you're really leaning into these personas and thinking, oh, this is what's going to make me happy. This is what's activating my amygdala in the right way and things along those lines, right? You know, you can get kind of lost in the poisons, right? But to
Right.
really take that time to reflect internally and understand what your own personal clarity is, right? That can really be your true motivator to figure out, well, what are you achieving, right? I was just having this conversation with a client earlier today about, the difference between understanding versus doing, right? You know, he has a tendency to always ask why. Why is this happening? What can I learn from this? Very introspective, right? But where the gap is like, okay, well, what do you do then, right? I asked the question, well, where are you trying to get to, right? Like, what does this actually look like? Like, what's that ideal version of you, right? And he was really struggling because he never actually took the time to think about, well, what am I actually moving towards, right? I know what everybody else says I should move towards, but is that authentic to me, right? You know, and these are the questions that sometimes we struggle to answer. So it's all about really looking internally and figuring out, well, what's important to you, right? Is it your spiritual health? Is it your physical health? Is it your family? Is it your friends? Is it, it could be your career. That's fine if you feel enriched, right? But it's really up to you as the individual to understand what is your personal driver? What is your personal definition of achievement?
Because that's kind of where the murky waters start showing up, because it kind of brings it back to, so it's our own definition of achievement. Because we are still living in a culture, we're still living in a space that kind of affects our, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of affects our own self-image.
Hmm. Sure.
Because back in the day, it was get married, raise children, protect your family. Before that, maybe go hunt, be a soldier, be serve your country, or what different versions of that. And and now we're in a space where it's very unclear, because you're saying, okay, so it's your own self-definition of your masculine role that you have to understand. And when you understand that, you can kind of direct the masculine energy towards that,
Hmm.
which I think that's very practical, but I would also say that it's also so vague.
Hmm.
Like how, like what is that? Like why is it important for us to like find something to achieve? Is this something that we can really ask? Because from a spiritual sense, from the yogic sense, from the Buddhistic and Vedantic, the cup will never be full. right? Because it will, oh, because the cup has a hole in it. So no matter how much you achieve,
Hmm.
it will never be enough because you, oh, one, you either will want more
Hmm.
and then you will be upset because you don't have it, or two, you'll get a lot and then you're afraid of losing it,
Hmm.
right? I worked so hard to get that lovely home or that beautiful car or this amazing partner. And now I'm afraid of losing it, or I want now more. Oh, I want a different partner because I'm bored in my relationship, or I want a new car because this one is like a little old and my neighbor got a better car, or this house only has one bathroom. I want two bathrooms. I want this kind of the. So the hole will never be close because we're always, as long as we operate through our ego, we'll always want more and more and more and more.
Hmm.
So no matter where you challenge that masculine energy, it will never be enough.
Hmm.
And I think that's why a lot of cultures took to the roles of masculinity because they wanted to take that huge amount of energy and funnel it somewhere.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the interesting dilemma there, because on one end it will never be enough.
Hmm.
On the other end needs to be channeled somewhere.
Hmm.
And it's not always easy to figure out our own meaning
Hmm.
because we don't know, we don't understand it. We're living in this world, this energetic potential called life that we don't really understand.
Hmm.
Right? It's a fish inside an ocean trying to understand what is an ocean, what is an earth.
Hmm.
How could he? A
Hmm.
fish won't understand what is land, what is a volcano, what is a tree.
Hmm.
All right, a fish can't understand it while they're living in the ocean. They'll actually have to leave the ocean in order to understand it from another perspective. So as long as we're living in life, how can we figure out what is important here enough that we need to direct all that masculine energy towards?
Hmm.
So that's the confusion. So, and I think this is kind of the trouble that we have in a modern life and why spirituality it, it's having a hard time mitigate it
Hmm.
unless you're very dogmatic because there's so many options but so little understanding for us, so we don't know where to take all that energy, and we're in this in between. Should I be married or not? Should I focus on my job? That's really my life goal, to dedicate my entire life to a company? Is it really about how much money I make? Because that will never be enough. Is it status? Because that's not going to be enough. Is it my
Hmm.
relationship? Because that's not going to be enough.
Hmm.
What do we do with that?
Hmm.
You feel the frustration, and
Oh
that's what I
yeah.
feel when I see all these men around. It always feel like they're floating through a very high energy, aggressive force.
Hmm.
It's a force that wants something,
Hmm.
but it doesn't know where to direct it, so you're just holding it in.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
feel it in many different versions, especially in the spirituality world.
Hmm. That aspect of wanting but not knowing what you actually truly want.
Oh, it's brutal. It's
Hmm.
brutal.
Hmm.
I feel like I feel it's like being a teenager and you have all this uh, sexual desire, but you have zero game,
Ah,
and you want
you're describing me at 14.
me too, me too. Oh, I had no game whatsoever, but it's like you're just screaming, ah! I don't know what I need to do, and you have no idea because you're
Yeah.
14. It's like your body's going crazy. So I feel it's just more of a subtle version of that,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I'd
So
agree with
so
that.
so where do you take that one? Like, how would you take this?
No, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think that it's very interesting as you're bringing up that topic as well, because my mind actually kind of flips a little bit. It's interesting because I totally align with what you're saying. That aspect of wanting without ever actually knowing where to channel it. But I think one of the things that you could potentially be running into here too, because this is just where my brain keeps going, so obviously it's worth bringing up, is when you come across a lot of those frustrations, right? That to me shows that there's a level of insecurity. right? And I think that that is like one of the biggest things that males have a tendency to avoid understanding, right? And making friends with the fact that we all have insecurities. So when you don't have that channeling, when you don't have that direction, when you are constantly looking at, the personas and they're getting ahead and things along those lines, it festers this sense of insecurity that isn't actually being tended to. It's not being discussed. It's not being processed. It's not being, worked through, if you will, right? And that can be a really scary thing at times, right? So that does show up in a lot of aggression, a lot of projection, a lot of, yeah, aggression, progression, projection, things along those lines. Just that it's almost that kind of like lashing out energy, right? You're talking about
Yeah.
even just in the way you describe the kid, like you know what I mean? It's just like that expression of that insecurity, right? So
Right.
I think that that's definitely a big piece of this as well, is that's a very big symptom of not having your clear defined goals.
So the spiritual world, we're talking yoga, we're talking Christianity, we're talking Judaism, we talk martial arts, Taoist, Buddhist. They all approach this concept
Hmm.
because masculinity and femininity, it's energies. We are energy. Our thoughts are energy. It's pure electricity shooting
Hmm.
through neurons. Our nervous systems, our bodies, our electromagnetic field, chemical shooting, cells moving, that's all energy and it continues to grow from the moment you're conceived to the moment you die. And even afterward, even after you lose complete consciousness, your body, everything is still in motion.
Hmm.
So it's energy. In the end, you are energy.
Hmm.
And that masculine energy portion of it is addressed through the spiritual lens through two things. It's one, through a role. They
Hmm.
give you a specific role.
Hmm.
And two, because they treat it as energy, they need to give you something to do.
Hmm.
So in the world of yoga, you have, for example, brahmacharya, which means conserving your sexual energy, for example.
Hmm.
So, or Christianity, where you're supposed to be with someone after in wedlock only.
Hmm.
So there are certain roles. So that's how spirituality kind of addresses that. It gives you a guideline as well as a role that you are supposed to fulfill. So is it real? Is this really what spirituality is? It's just about choosing a role and then we'll be much happier? Is that what that is?
Hmm.
Like,
Well, yeah, I think that that aspect of choosing a role and then we'll be happier. I think I just equate it down to my own experience, right? And when I was really kind of reflecting on what is the meaning of life, what is the meaning of existence, right? And things like that. And I really
that's a fun one.
it is a fun one, and I had a very clear kind of understanding of what that was. I think I was in high school, maybe just after high school. I'll tell you the story because I think it's actually kind of cool. So I was sitting by a fire with a bunch of friends, and like that thought had come to me, and I was using it as reflection, and I noticed a spider. It was a very cold night. It was upstate New York, right? And I noticed a spider that just so happened to be getting close enough to the fire to keep itself warm, right? But not close enough where it was injuring itself. And I had a moment of clarity, a moment of insight there that I have certain skills and gifts and things that I can provide for the benefit of other people, right? So the spider can't make a fire, but the spider definitely benefits from a fire on a cold night, right? Think about like the lessons of Christianity, do unto others, right? Golden rule, all that stuff, right? And I really tapped into that as like, okay, what can I do today that is going to make me feel better than I did yesterday, but then also provide something to somebody else that they might actually need, right? I think that was a big driver in me getting into the career that I am in now as well, right? Being a therapist, really being like a role of service, if you will, right? And so really kind of identifying at least my own specific role as using the strengths and the gifts that I have in order to, well, as cheesy as it sounds, make the world a better place, right?
Right. So it's kind of a sense of what's the word I'm looking for? it's kind of a sense of escaping me. It's like your
Purpose.
calling,
Yeah.
purpose, calling. It's your call to action in a way.
Yes,
It's like
exactly.
let's that's the achievement, right? That's
Right.
it. And I think when we're dealing with energies, we have to
Hmm.
understand the language of the energy.
Hmm.
Because every energy has its own language. It's all part of the same system.
Hmm.
But every part of the system talks a little differently, just like the whole planet and all these different cultures and human beings on this planet, animals, etc. They're all part of the same planet called Earth, but everybody's kind of communicating a little differently.
Right.
So to us, we have this masculine energy in us, we have the feminine energy within us, we have our thoughts, our feelings, but also the animalistic, the primal aspects of us, and they all talk a little differently. So the masculine energy has a certain way of speaking.
Hmm.
Here's what it understands. It understands purpose.
Hmm.
And it understands pragmatism.
Hmm.
It understands logistics, right? Like you said before, it's like, just tell me what's the problem
Hmm.
and let me try to fix it.
Yeah.
That's the masculine version of that. That's the language it understands, right?
Right.
Well, what's going on there?
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Bodhi just walked in the room and I was trying to get him over here to do a cameo, but then he just walked out of the room. So I apologize for the distraction.
you wanted too much.
Yeah, I know. I wanted it too much.
Which, by the way, that's kind of the thing that hurts a lot of masculine energy. For example, and this is something I'm sure everybody can relate to, if you had bad game like me and Michael,
Yep.
if you have ever been on a date and you come to this potential partner or sexual partner or whatever, and dates are weird because it's a job interview.
Yeah, right.
And if you put yourself in the seat of the lady, it's like this is a job interview, and the job is me being naked. So it's kind of a scary thought. So it's like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm gonna be a little more careful. Be careful what you say here. So as a guy in this date, if you want it a lot, if you want it, the other person will feel it and will make them uncomfortable. A lot of the time, you wanting it actually takes you away from the ability
Yeah, you're
because you're
trying
not
too hard.
playing. Yeah, you're trying too hard. And it's not trying too hard from a place of confidence
Hmm.
where you flatter. It's not I flatter you from a
Hmm.
place of confidence and competency.
Hmm.
It's from a place of like, oh, I need my kick.
Yeah, it's
You're holding
insecurity.
the Yeah, you're holding the drug I want. I'll give you whatever you want. I'll give
Hmm.
you my so that's the energy of wanting too much. So I feel like we're getting into that space of balance again, because that's
Right.
always the answer. It's okay. So we need to channel the energy somewhere.
Hmm.
That's one thing. We need to understand the language, what it wants.
Hmm.
What does it actually want? And we need to balance it out. You mentioned before how too much fire can affect us. Now, I would round it out and I would say it's not about too much fire. I guess no, why am I correcting? No, it's correct. It's too much yang
Right.
fire versus yin fire. There's the
Hmm.
masculine version of the fire and there's the feminine version of the fire, and you have to decide how much you want, how big you want the flame or how small you want the flame. So a big flame, like you said, with the spider will kill the spider.
Hmm.
Too small of a flame won't warm anyone.
Right.
So you have to balance your own fire. But how do we do that, Michael? That's kind of a crazy thought. Because in spirituality, we have that. I saw plenty of toxic men in the world of spirituality. We see it tons.
Oh yeah.
Eh, we have all these guys who, yeah, you had an experience, right? Not experience, but you heard or being part, like it ends up a sex cult for some reason.
Oh yeah.
It always ends up as a sex
I was
cult.
not in one, but I learned of one. Yes.
Yeah, I heard of another one. It's like you have all this confident energy and you're helping to become making the world a little better, and then something turns, and then now it's a sex call, comes the sexual accusation, the sexual misconduct, and it
Hmm.
all turns from serving others
to
to
serving self.
serving you.
Right.
Exactly. So it's about my image. It's about me. It's about me. I'm the king. I'm the king.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the king.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not helping the world. So there's a lot of toxic energy in the spiritual world, and that's an extreme example. But let's focus on the small examples for a second, where we taught to just listen to your breath and be meditative and be relaxed. We're trying to balance it with the feminine energy, the yin, the receptive energy.
Right.
But it very quickly turns into aggressive energy. In a way, here, let me try to process this in my head for a second. It turns into aggressive energy because the fire doesn't know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, I calm down the fire, but it doesn't have a direction. Is it really just about kind of being peaceful and all is love? All you need is love. And then you find yourself in like some sort of a sex cult, or you're trying to hook up with a spiritual lady or whatever. You're starting to lie to yourself. You're creating a persona of
Mm-hmm.
relaxation while in your head, you're still not managing the masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of threw a lot out there. So let me bring it back to you. What do you think of that? What do you think about the masculine role in the spiritual space from your
Mm-hmm.
experience?
Well, I think as you're talking about it, I like the way that you would put that, right? We talk about breath, we talk about balance, we talk about trying to, understand what that balance is, right? But as you said before, emotions are energy and everything, all energy in motion stays in motion, right? So that energy that you're balancing, right, like it still needs to go somewhere, right? And when it doesn't have that direction, it can get all jumbled up, right? Or it can get all stagnant, or it can get blocked, or it can be channeled in the wrong direction and things along those lines. And so I think that really having I just keep coming back to this word that, that you and I discussed in one of our personal conversations about clarity, right? And I think that sometimes we have a tendency to, when we think about goals or we think about direction and we think about all these things, we think too macro, right? What is it in like 5 years, right? What is it in a month, right? But the idea is to really get as micro as possible, right? What's my goal for the next 5 minutes, right? What's my next goal for the next 10 seconds, right? Like, is it, focusing on, bring it back to the meditation. Is it focusing on slowing the heart rate? Is it focusing on bringing my thoughts back to the breath, right? Is it focused on, calm? Is it focused on orientation, right? Grounding, right? And really just kind of finding these almost like little micro channels that you can kind of measure as your successes or measure as your kind of immediate goals. What do you think about that?
I think that that's definitely where your mind should go, because the key for progression is simplification.
Right.
I know in myself, for example, I wanted to do my yoga exercise this morning, and I told Kayla, I want to do my yoga, and I know the more I wait, the lazier I will be.
Yep.
So as soon as that thought comes to my head, I gotta do it in the moment. It's true especially for exercise for me. And I think I'll take that one step forward. I think we're dealing with a human condition. It kind of
hmm
brings back to that lack of meaning fundamentally that I feel we have in the Western world, because we haven't really told anyone what exactly is their role.
hmm
Right? There's a certain freedom that has been focused throughout the Western culture, but that freedom turned into ambiguity,
hmm
right? Because you said something interesting regarding role models, right? The idea of men going through a, let's call it a ceremony of from adolescence to becoming a man. And that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of an interesting concept you mentioned about channeling that energy of masculinity into something.
hmm
right? Because that's something different, right? Here, you explain so well about that. Like, I want you to jump into that.
Yeah, definitely. So the whole idea is that, indigenous cultures, ancient tribes, villages, etc., they would have these ceremonial, experiences that would signify boys turning into men, right? And traditionally, that would be something along the lines of like the male elders taking them out on like a walkabout or to teach them the ways, or there was something that was almost kind of like celebrated and taught to you as, the ultimately just that transition, right? But what happened is around circa 1950s-ish. I'm just throwing a random date on that, could be earlier, but we started to, as a society, glorify the absent male, right? The absent father, right? The father that leaves in the morning to go to work and then comes home at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, things along those lines, or the absent father altogether, right? Or the father that was seen as like the bumbling idiot on like Dick Van Dyke Show or things along those lines, right?
Simpsons is another
Simpsons,
example.
yep, Family Guy, pick your poison, right? We started to really glorify this kind of absent-minded, detached father figure.
Not Family Matters. He
No,
was a little doofy, but he was a good dad.
it was a good dad though, that's for
He was
sure.
a good dad. No, he was good.
hmm But anyway, so what happens is when you remove that, when you
Yeah.
remove that aspect of ceremony, when you remove that aspect of proper role modeling, well, the natural instinct is to go find these lessons elsewhere. And that can breed environments of joining gangs, right? Hanging out with the wrong crowd, right? You're still
Because
looking for.
they
Mhm.
they have their own rituals, right? That's their
Exactly.
own adolescent
hmm
ritual, like
Their own
go
adolescent
steal,
rituals,
go kill, go hurt.
hazing
So
processes, things along those lines.
yeah.
There's still like a twisted form of ceremony in that, right? But it gives you. So the whole idea, again, the more you remove those kinds of proper ceremonial role models and replace them with more toxic examples, right? Then that's what kind of perpetuates some of the stigma, perpetuates some of the issue, continues that negative cycle.
So we're a bit in between a stone and a hard place, right? Because on one end, it's hard for us to define what is the proper role we should take. And at the same time, we say it's important that we have one. Isn't that a little difficult? Well, the nice thing I feel about the United States, especially, and that's kind of the benefit of the Western world, that you have a lot of options. If you want, you can be an Amish man. You can
Yeah.
go straight up Amish. They're very simple. They know exactly what they want. You can go through different cultures. There's the Judaism version of what identifies a man. There's spirituality of yoga or the spirituality of Buddhism, and there's a lot of different versions. That being said, again, we're in this kind of like situation we don't know exactly where to go. So we have options.
hmm
We're kind of stuck with it. So here, let me throw it to you. What was your moment, if you had one, where you said like, I'm a man. This is a man moment.
This is a man moment when I
This is
when I
a man moment.
when
This is
I
a moment where I am I'm living up to that exemplification of the element of yang,
hmm
that masculine energy. And again, this is not just for men. This
yeah.
is just disclaimer. This is not just a man thing. I'm just using it as kind of just the easy way to
To
make
define the
my point.
masculine energy, yes, I hear what you're
Yeah.
saying. Obviously, masculine, everybody has masculine energy, everybody has feminine energy, depending, no matter where you are on the gender spectrum, for sure. It's an
Right.
from the
This
energetic
we're
property. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're just
Mhm.
living in a culture where there's a certain leaning in male energy. So there's obviously this kind of there's a dominant version of the masculine energy. So it's just easier to make our points. But
So it's
so
interesting. Yeah. So it's
what was
interesting.
yours?
So it's interesting that you bring this up, right? Because I think that as we've talked about, I fall into the similar trap of achievement. So if I'm looking back on my life, right, I can identify things that made me feel man, right? When I opened up a practice, right? Or got my LCSW, right? Or played on stage for the first time, or I just played a show this past weekend that I thought went really well. But the interesting thing is, within my own practice, experiencing those scenarios didn't actually feel like man moments, right? They actually
Right.
just felt like the thing to do, right? It was
Right.
like, got my license, perfect. What's the next thing, right? Like,
Right.
okay, now I'm doing private practice. Okay, what's the next thing, right? And it really took some practice of presence, mindfulness, meditation, things like that, and really sitting with kind of looping back to what I was talking about, emotional intelligence, to sit and celebrate success, right? So it was somebody else that, that mentioned, I was like, they were like, I think it was actually my therapist at the time, like, oh, well, anything big happened, within the last, like, couple of weeks. So I was like, yeah, I got my LCSW. Who's like, what? You did? Dude, that's awesome. And I was like, yeah, it's all good. Right. And he was like, well, wait, what? Hold on a minute. Right. It was like one of those sobering moments where I had to really remind myself, oh yeah, it's okay to celebrate that, right?
Right.
So yeah, so it's
More than
interesting.
okay, it's important.
It's
It's important
important.
to
It's
take a
important.
moment
Mm-hmm.
to acknowledge the energy achievement.
Mm-hmm.
Masculinity, not glorify it, because that's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
The glorification of it is the issue,
Mm,
or the complete, like you're saying, like the complete poo-pooing of it.
right.
That's also an issue. So the acknowledgement and taking that moment that you reach the peak of the mountain, it's like take a moment to enjoy it.
Yes.
10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. Before you move on with your hike, there's a moment to enjoy the achievement.
The scenery. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's to taking it in. It's to contain. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's how I would see it. If we're thinking of masculine energy as energy, think of it a moment where you contain the energy in one lake before you drop and channel it to the next.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because in that lake, that's where the vitamins or the nutrients come in.
Yeah.
But you don't want them all there all the time because that's when they become stagnant, they become sick,
Too much
and you
water.
don't want it, and you don't want to ignore it completely because then there's not moment for containment.
Right.
So yeah, so that's kind of an interesting. Do you see that as a ritualistic aspect? Like, did you have a ritualistic moment where you said, like, okay, this is my transition, this is my time to move from adolescence? Can you think of anything like that?
No, no, I can't honestly say that I've had any sort of defining ritualistic ceremonial transition from one state of life into the next. But that's really what my current practice is to slow down and to celebrate and give myself, a slight transition into something new, right? Or to give myself a slight celebration as you move into the next step, right?
Right.
But up to this point, just turned 39 years old, right? It took me, let's say, 37 years to, to really understand that, So, yeah, so definitely
Well,
working on it now.
then let's talk about in that case, let's talk about really middle age. Isn't that a scary one? Like to be middle age means you hit the middle of the
Thanks
road.
for reminding me that, Shahar.
Yeah. Well, that means that from the next time we're going to talk about this, you'll be 78.
That's right. Exactly.
That's going to be the second half, 78. I'll ask you. So, how do you think this last 39 years went?
Yep.
So, because that's something that happens a lot. Like people get into this phase of their life where they're 39, 40, and they feel like they're missing out. They
Midlife
feel
crisis. Hmm.
exactly. They don't feel like they got that trans or they got to that uh from adolescence too fast, so they want to like recapture it.
Right.
Or another way, or maybe they just never grew up out of it. Maybe they're still in adolescence mode, and then they reach like 40 and like, this is not holding up.
Hmm. It's not
This is not
sustainable.
holding. Yeah, this is not holding up as it was when I was 18.
Hmm.
Something is off there. How do you see that?
Hmm. I think that especially as you're talking about, I think you're totally right on that, right? I think that you reach a certain age when you start to reflect, so around like middle age, you're like you said, halfway done, right? Quote unquote, right? God willing. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, that's what we're noticing. We're noticing death. That's really
yes.
what we're noticing. We're
Hmm.
noticing kind of like the end of the road. It's that first glimpse of the end of the road. And that's where we're like, the amygdalas are like, whoa.
Yep. And then it really turns on you
They,
to ask yourself, did you get everything that you wanted to do up to this point, right? Did
right.
you get a chance to do that one thing, right? But I think that I was very blessed in my own life to kind of know that that was a possibility. So I really did everything I possibly could to do everything I wanted to do before I got to this point, right?
Right.
Like I traveled, I was a nomad, I bounced around the States, I ended up in Florida, I played in touring bands, I went to all the music festivals, I went to all the concerts, I really engrossed myself in the music scene and hung out with all these bands and had all these experiences and went the distance and got into private practice. And so like I really was trying to hammer out like everything I possibly wanted to do. I didn't even get into a serious, like relationship. I didn't meet my wife until I was like 31 years old, right?
I know.
Like
I was there.
you were
I was
there. Yeah,
there.
that's
I
right. You were
was,
there. So yeah, so I mean,
and I didn't even know that was like history in the making.
right, totally, 100%. But that's what I'm saying.
No
I think that I've
idea.
always been so aware of the risk of that, like by the time I've made it here, as I'm reflecting back, I mean, sure, I never made it to Burning Man, but like other than that, like everything's totally fine.
Yeah. I don't know if Burning Man is my sin, honestly. I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't think it is either the more I think about it, but
all right. But
it sounds more of an annoyance to me these days.
yeah. Well, maybe because we're both nerds. Maybe that's the
True.
reason.
Yeah,
A
that's
couple of
true.
nerds. So, okay. So that brings up so many questions. So what do we do with that? Because there's a certain benefit to the roles of masculinity because it really does allow you to kind of channel all the things you might get as soon as possible,
Hmm.
like to get early out there. But even then, that's not a fix because you still have to do kind of the work on your own. You have to balance something.
Hmm.
And this is really where I want to take this. We have to balance that energy. We got to channel it. We got to give it a role. We have to understand it, understand the language. We got to channel it. We got to give it a role in our life. But we also need to balance it.
Hmm.
All right. We have to balance that energy. And what will balance the masculine energy?
What's the practical piece, Shahar?
Well, obviously, it's the feminine energy. Feminine energy balances the masculine.
Hmm.
And that's going to be, we'll have to talk about feminine energy a different day. But let's just focus for now. Let me ask you this. What do you think about the feminine energy balances the masculine that kind of allows it to handle itself?
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Because the
that
masculine
is,
energy is a little
yeah.
out of control on its own. If you just will at no ground, you'll be
Hmm.
floating up into the air. You'll be like, that's how it
Oh
feels.
yeah.
Like you have nothing to grab onto. Right?
Dissociation, anxiety, things
Oh,
along
yeah,
those
yeah.
lines, right?
A
Yeah.
tree,
Hmm.
a tree needs its roots.
Yep. A
It needs
tree
the
with no
branches to
roots.
go to
Yeah.
the sun.
Hmm.
Yeah, a tree
Hmm.
has to go to the sun, branch out, go upwards. But if it does it without the roots, it's gonna ping, it's
Oh
gonna
yeah.
fall down and will
Hmm.
rot from the inside.
Yeah.
So how do you think the feminine energy, give it kind of a definition and tell me how does it really take that masculine energy and balance it out?
Well, because when you act, you also need to receive, right? You need to go, but also listen, right? I think that it's very, that is harmony within itself. Just this entropy, right? Between going back and forth that, you desire, yet you honor, right? You want, but you celebrate, right? Just this whole aspect of slowing down, receiving, and listening to what your body needs or to what you need, right? As that balances out the actions that you're taking from it, right? So again, going back to, my client today, right? Talking about trying to find what they want, right? That listening, that understanding, the asking the whys, the trying to intellectualize, the trying to understand, that's just as important as deciding where you want to go and what actions you're going to take. So I think it's extraordinarily important because you really can't have one without the other.
Right. And and I think it's right there. What you're that's exactly that point. It's that being able to be aware of both at the same time. And I think this is where spirituality really shines. This is where I think the cool parts of
Hmm.
spirituality, especially Qigong and yoga, because one, because I know most about them. But did you grow up Christian by any chance?
Oh yeah, I was raised. Well, I had a very interesting household. I was raised in the Catholic Church, but my dad was a skeptic. So I had
Right,
both
right,
ends of it. I had the going to church every Sunday, but then reading my dad's skeptic magazines, right? And so it was always that, like, hey, here's some framework, here's some spirituality, here's some things to kind of
right.
work towards. But at the same time,
Well, that's nice. That sounds like you kind of got a good balance, and I think that's very important. I grew up in a Jewish household. And a big part of Judaism is to doubt, is to question, right? The word
Mhm,
Israel specifically means to struggle with God.
mhm,
El is God, Isra is like to struggle with God. So the idea is you're supposed to follow God, but not blindly.
mhm,
That's kind of the idea. And mixed with the martial arts aspect that gave me something to channel physical somatic energies,
mhm,
as well with the Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga that kind of came all together, which was about the concept of balance.
mhm,
I feel were very integral for my understanding of how to take all that masculine energy and balance it out. And like I said, this is the neat part of the spiritual and energetic worlds, at least the philosophy and
mhm,
understanding of it, because it really shows you how to balance it, how to bring it all together. Because, like you said, when I'm feeling a lot of masculinity, I need to notice where the femininity is. I need to understand when I'm trying to achieve. I need to understand where I root.
mhm.
When in martial arts, I know this really well. When you punch in one hand, you got to understand which hand is blocking.
Right.
When you're ducking or dodging one hit, you got to be aware which hand can attack.
Mhm,
You have to be constantly aware of these multiple polarities working on you and around you,
mhm,
because you're a source of energy and potential, but also everybody around you and the planet and universe you are standing on, it's its own energetic potential.
mhm.
So energy is continuously fluxing and moving.
Yep.
So, as an energetic practitioner, you need to understand you can't be only one and you can't be only the other. You're not a robot. You can't be, oh, this is my role, so I'm going to do this role. This is masculinity, so I got to do masculinity. Oh, now I'm femininity. Now I'm masculinity. No, it doesn't work that way.
Mhm,
When you go yang, you have yin. When you have yin, you have yang.
mhm.
That's why the symbol has when the yang is the biggest, the yin is the smallest, but it's still there. It has that
Right.
little dot. And
Mhm.
when the yin is the biggest, there's still a yang in it. So there's a constant balancing game
Right.
here. And I feel like that's the key to really channel masculine energy. It's the key to channel feminine energy. And I think we should do another episode on feminine energy.
Yeah, I
We'll
think that's a
see.
good idea. I think maybe next episode, if we don't end up doing the one that was planned for today, we should definitely default to the feminine energy one. I think that would be a good balance.
Right, but I feel like maybe it would look better if it's not just you and me talking about it. Maybe maybe we could find someone who understands feminine energy a little better.
Sure.
But in the end, the answer stays the same. That's kind of
Mhm.
the practical portion of it. It's balance.
Right.
So when we talk about spirituality, that's what we need to understand. It's not about the meditation. It's not about the role. It's how we act in these roles and how we meditate. So
Yep.
if I'm meditating, I need to meditate for a purpose,
Hmm.
not just meditate because I need to relax. It's something that is beyond just I need to relax. I'm meditating because it's a piece that brings the whole forward.
Hmm.
All right, I'm taking this role as father or employee or boss or worker, caregiver, healer, doctor, whatever role you want to put in there. It's not I'm doing this role because someone told me to do it. It's not I'm doing this role because I was led into it. I have to do this role because I believe it takes this whole, be
Hmm.
Michael or Shahar or Johnny or Billy or Gilly or whatever. And it takes this ecosystem and moves it towards a potential, like the tree. The tree grows out
Hmm.
and down at the same time. It balances the elements. It can't be, I put the tree in the Sahara Desert because that's where it's supposed to be. Well,
Right.
it's not gonna last very long, will
Hmm.
it? It has
Right.
to actually work with all the elements around it.
Hmm.
So masculine energy needs to match what energy is around it. So my practical advice will be if you're struggling with your own masculine energy, like it's getting out of whack, you don't know where to focus it, you don't know where to channel it, then you need to be aware of the environment around you and take that energy and direct it into the way that will move you in a potential forward
Hmm.
as a being,
Right.
not just achieving that one thing. That
Hmm.
one thing needs to bring you all as a whole, your spirit, your mind, your body, all the treasures,
Hmm.
and needs to take them forward
Hmm.
and increase them or expand them. I'm saying forward, but I mean like the tree. It's
Yeah, right.
growing through the
Expansion.
roots
Hmm.
and
Hmm. Hmm.
expansion, and
Hmm.
also helping the universe around you because a tree is not just a tree, it's not just
Hmm.
for itself, but it's also part of a bigger ecosystem. It helps the environment, it helps its surrounding. If you're a good tree, you will be strong and rooted with a solid yin feminine energy to keep you connected to the ground, keep you attentive, like you said, and you have a strong masculine energy. Your branches are reaching out, your leaves, you are able to contain a multitudes of energies. Now you can't do that in one go, right? You have to develop your roots and your branches at the same time
Hmm.
and start small into the big,
Right.
right? Because if you take too many things at once, too many roles, you're going to collapse in on yourself.
Definitely.
If you focus only on rooting, but you have very little branches, you're not going to get enough sun and you're going to be rotting out.
Hmm.
And
Right.
I feel like that's the two versions of the toxicity that masculinity can get into.
Hmm.
Either too little, where you're rotting and you become like nothingness and you become angry, depressed, sad, or you're so focused out there, you have nothing to grab you to the ground and you just fall over.
Right. Exactly. Hmm. I agree.
And
I agree completely. And
right.
my addition to practicality as well would be to celebrate your successes. Totally, 100%.
Yes, that's
I
very
like to say
important.
to every client that I see that if you are striving for change, everything is a success. So it is important to be able to honor where you are as you're building your branches as well as your roots.
Right. Beautiful. Beautifully said. Now I have another story, but I'm still debating if I should say it or not. Never mind. I'll sit on this I'll listen. Let my roots some
That's
chance to
your roots.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Because I have a problem with impulsivity and anti-authority. That's what I learned as a pilot. These are two things that
Uh-huh.
I know I have an issue with. Impulsivity, I gotta be wait.
Yep.
Think first.
Think first
A-
and then
And
act.
anti-authority, I have to ask, okay, wait. If there's a rules, I have to understand why they're there.
Right.
If I'm gonna disobey the rules, I need to understand why they're there first.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's my antidote to that version of my masculine energy. So, all right, I
Love
think we
it.
kind of covered everything. So
Yeah.
how would you want to close it? We finished the practical advice. We talked about masculine energy in different variations. Is there something we're missing?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything. This has been a very good conversation as always. So, you know,
As we can say so
as
ourselves.
we can say so ourselves,
Uh,
and yes,
uh,
exactly. And then obviously, don't forget to like, subscribe, smash the bell, notification, etc., etc.
All right. And join our sex cult.
Yes.
No,
Disclaimer, it's
uh,
not actually a sex call.
no. First, we got to start the cults.
Yes,
We're not
then, yeah,
even there
exactly.
yet. Disclaimer, none of this this is a joke, internet.
Exactly.
The internet used to be able to take jokes. Now it can.
Now we'll hear it in the comments.
That would be nice if we had some comments. We have no comments. Nobody comments.
They'll start. All
Okay, good. Hi, Michael. Thank you
right.
very much. Here, close us
Yes,
off, please.
I will. All right. Goodbye, everybody.